My name is Florence, and I'd been married to Marcus for 8 years when I discovered he'd been living a double life for the past 6 months. It all started on a Tuesday evening when he was cooking dinner, his specialty, pasta carbonara, and his phone buzzed on the counter. "Babe, can you check that?" Marcus called from the stove. My hands are covered in egg. I picked up his phone and saw the notification. Tiffany Chen. "I miss you so much. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." My stomach dropped. I knew Tiffany. She was his coworker at the architecture firm, the 26-year-old junior designer he'd mentioned several times. "Always so eager to learn," he'd said. I opened the message and saw months of conversations. My hands shook as I scrolled through photos, plans, promises. They'd been meeting at hotels. He'd told her he was leaving me. He'd said I was boring and didn't understand him anymore. Something cold settled in my chest. I typed back, "Great, come by now. Marcus would love to see you." "Who was it?" Marcus asked, still stirring the pasta. "Just Tiffany," I said calmly. "She's coming over." He dropped the spoon. "What? What do you mean she's coming over?" "I invited her. She misses you so much after all." I held up the phone, showing him the open conversation. His face went white. "Florence, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. In about 20 minutes when Tiffany arrives. Should I set 3 places for dinner?" "This isn't what it looks like," he stammered. "We're just friends. She's going through a hard time." "Marcus, I can read. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again? Last night was incredible. That's quite a friendship." He reached for the phone, but I pulled it away. "Don't you dare. This is evidence now." "Evidence? Florence, come on. We can talk about this like adults." "We will, with Tiffany. I think she deserves to know that the man who promised to leave his wife for her is standing here calling her just a friend." The doorbell rang 18 minutes later. Marcus looked like he might vomit. I opened the door to find Tiffany Chen, young and beautiful, holding a bottle of wine and wearing a dress that was definitely not appropriate for a casual dinner with a coworker's wife. "Hi," she said brightly, then saw Marcus's face and her smile faltered. "Oh, this isn't... Marcus, what's going on?" "Come in, Tiffany," I said. "We're all going to have a conversation." She stepped inside, confusion turning to alarm. "I don't understand." "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the couch. "Both of you." Marcus sat on one end, Tiffany on the other, both looking terrified. "So, Tiffany, Marcus just told me you're going through a hard time, and you're just friends. Is that accurate?" She looked at Marcus, who was staring at his hands. She started. "Because based on 6 months of text messages, you've been sleeping with my husband and he promised to divorce me and marry you, so which is it?" Tiffany's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, you said you told her. You said you were getting divorced." "You lied to her too?" I asked him. "Impressive." "I was going to tell you," he muttered. "I just needed the right time." "The right time was 6 months ago before you started cheating," I said. "But here's what's really interesting, Tiffany. Did you know Marcus and I have a prenuptial agreement?" Her face went blank. "A what?" "A prenup. But what Marcus doesn't know is that my father updated our estate documents 2 years ago. I inherited his company, worth about $12 million. It's in a trust that becomes mine entirely in a divorce, unless adultery is involved, in which case the cheating spouse gets nothing." Marcus's head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you just gambled away your chance at $6 million for a 26-year-old coworker who thought you were going to leave me anyway." Tiffany stood up. "I didn't know he was still... I thought..." "Save it," I said. "You knew he was married. You just didn't care." She grabbed her purse and ran out the door. Marcus stood up. "Florence, please, we can work this out. I made a mistake." "Get out of my house," I said quietly. "Tonight, pack a bag. My lawyer will be in touch tomorrow." The next morning I called my sister Rachel before I even got out of bed. "He did what?" she shrieked. "I'm coming over right now." Rachel arrived 30 minutes later with coffee and murder in her eyes. "Where is he?" "Hotel, I assume. I told him to leave last night." She hugged me tight. "I'm so sorry, Flo. What do you need?" "A ruthless divorce lawyer," I said. "The best in the city." "I know just the guy. David Chen, no relation to that homewrecker. He handled my friend Sarah's divorce. Her husband tried to hide assets in offshore accounts. David found every penny. Call him, today." 2 hours later, I was sitting in David Chen's downtown office, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Mrs. Reynolds," David said.
Shaking my hand. He was in his 50s, silver-haired with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Rachel tells me your husband has been unfaithful." For 6 months, with a coworker. I have all the text messages, photos, hotel receipts charged to our joint credit card. David's eyebrows rose. He charged hotels to your joint account? Marcus isn't the brightest. He thought I never checked the statements. This is good, very good. Now tell me about your assets. I explained everything. The prenup, my father's company, the trust fund, our house, our joint accounts. David leaned back in his chair. Your father was smart. That trust language is airtight. If you can prove adultery, Marcus walks away with nothing but his personal belongings and whatever was in his individual accounts before the marriage. How much are we talking? Based on what you've told me, he'll leave this marriage with about $40,000. You'll keep the house, it's in your name, the company, the trust, everything. What about Tiffany? Can we go after her? For alienation of affection? It's possible in this state, but it's expensive and time-consuming. Let me ask you this. What do you really want? I thought about it. I want Marcus to understand exactly what he threw away. I want him to realize he gave up a life of comfort for nothing. Then we focus on the divorce. We make it fast, brutal, and decisive. We file on grounds of adultery, present your evidence, and we'll have this done in 90 days. That fast? With evidence this solid? Absolutely. He can try to fight it, but he won't win. I hired David on the spot. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a woman on a mission. I printed every text message, every photo. I hired a private investigator named Thomas Wade who confirmed Marcus and Tiffany were still seeing each other, now at her apartment. Does he think he's in love? Rachel asked one evening as we organized evidence at my dining room table. Who cares? He's about to learn what love costs. Thomas provided photos of Marcus leaving Tiffany's building at 6 a.m. on multiple occasions. He documented them having romantic dinners, holding hands in public, kissing in parking lots. Your husband is not subtle, Thomas said, handing me the file. This is some of the easiest surveillance I've ever done. Marcus tried calling me 17 times. I didn't answer. He sent emails begging to talk. I forwarded them to David. Finally, David's assistant hand-delivered the divorce papers to Marcus at work, in front of all his co-workers, including Tiffany. Rachel got this information from her friend who worked in the same building. Apparently he turned bright red, and Tiffany looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Good, I said. Let them both be embarrassed. The confrontation came 3 weeks later at our mandatory settlement conference. I walked into the conference room at David's firm with my sister by my side. Marcus was already there with his lawyer, a nervous-looking man named Paul Hendricks. Marcus looked terrible. He'd lost weight, his suit was wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. Florence, he started, can we please talk about this? That's what we're here for, I said coolly, taking my seat. David opened his briefcase. Let's begin. My client is filing for divorce on grounds of adultery. We have extensive evidence of Mr. Reynolds' affair with Tiffany Chen, including text messages, photographs, hotel receipts, and surveillance documentation. Paul cleared his throat. My client admits the relationship but disputes the characterization. He believes the marriage was already over. The marriage was over when he started sleeping with someone else, David interrupted. Legal adultery doesn't require the marriage to be working. It requires a violation of marital vows, which Mr. Reynolds clearly committed. Marcus leaned forward. Florence, I never meant to hurt you. I fell in love. These things happen. Did you fall in love before or after you spent $12,000 of our joint money on hotel rooms? I asked. He blinked. You're keeping track of money? I'm keeping track of everything. Every dinner you charged, every gift you bought her with funds from our joint account, every lie you told me about working late. Paul looked at his notes. Regarding the asset division, my client believes he's entitled to half of all marital assets. David slid a document across the table. Your client signed a prenuptial agreement. Furthermore, the trust containing Mrs. Reynolds' inherited assets has an adultery clause. Mr. Reynolds is entitled to nothing from the trust, nothing from the company, and nothing from the house, which is solely in Mrs. Reynolds' name. That can't be legal, Marcus sputtered. I have rights. You had rights, I said, until you decided to throw them away for Tiffany Chen. Tell me, Marcus, is she worth $6 million? His face crumpled. I didn't know about the trust. I didn't know your father changed because you never cared enough to pay attention. You thought I was just the boring wife at home while you played house with a woman young enough to be your daughter. She's not that young. he protested weakly. Rachel laughed. She's 26, Marcus. You're 43. That's pathetic. Paul tried to regain control. Let's focus on what my client is entitled to under state law. State law is superseded by the prenuptial agreement and the trust documents, David said, both of which are legally binding. Mr. Reynolds will leave this marriage with his personal belongings, his individual checking account balance of approximately $40,000, and his car. That's it. Marcus looked at Paul desperately. Can he do this? Paul looked at the prenup, then at Marcus. Did you commit adultery? Yes, but then yes, he can do this. You signed away your rights when you signed this document, and you activated the trust clause when you cheated. This is insane, Marcus shouted. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. And mistakes have consequences, I said. You gambled our marriage on a woman who, by the way, I happen to know has already moved on. He froze. What? Thomas? I gestured to the private investigator sitting in the corner. Thomas opened his tablet. Mr. Reynolds, I've been conducting surveillance as requested. As of 3 days ago, Miss Chen has been seen multiple times with a man named Derek Foster. They appear to be in a relationship. He showed photos of Tiffany kissing another man, laughing with him, entering his apartment. Marcus stared at the photos. No, she wouldn't. You're nothing, I said. You were never anything. She wanted excitement, and when you got served divorce papers and she realized there was no money coming, she found someone else. I don't believe you. I pulled out my phone and played a voice recording. It was Tiffany talking to a friend at a coffee shop. Thomas had been sitting 2 tables away. The whole thing was a mistake, Tiffany's voice said. Marcus is broke. I thought he had money, but turns out his wife has everything. He's got, nothing. And now he's getting divorced and he's all depressed and clingy. I can't deal with it. So, what are you going to do? Her friend asked. I already met someone new, Derek. He's actually single and actually has money. Marcus was just, a distraction. Marcus's face went from white to red. You recorded her? Public space, perfectly legal and perfectly clear. She used you the same way you used our marriage, as a stepping stone to something better. The divorce was finalized 63 days later. Marcus tried to fight it, but David was right. With evidence that solid, he had no chance. The judge awarded me everything. The house, the company, the trust, and our joint savings. Marcus got his car, his clothes, and his checking account. He was also fired from his architecture firm. Apparently, sleeping with a junior employee violated their ethics policy, especially once HR discovered he'd been giving Tiffany preferential treatment on projects and better assignments. Tiffany was transferred to their satellite office 3 hours away. Rachel's friend reported she was miserable. I was at home the day the final decree arrived, sitting on my back porch with a glass of wine and watching the sunset. Rachel called. How are you feeling? Free, I said. Lighter than I've been in years. Any regrets? Only that I didn't check his phone sooner. I could have saved myself months of living with a liar. What's next for you? I'm thinking about traveling. Maybe take over some of Dad's international accounts, expand the business. I've got the time and resources now. And dating? I laughed. Eventually. But first I'm going to remember what it's like to be Florence, not Marcus's wife, not Marcus's victim, just Florence. Marcus sent one final email after the decree was filed. I'm sorry, I never meant for it to end this way. Can we at least try to be friends? I deleted it without responding. David called a few days later. I heard through the grapevine that Marcus is living in a studio apartment and working as a freelance draftsman, quite a downgrade from senior architect. Good, I said. He earned it. Tiffany Chen left the firm entirely. Apparently, she couldn't handle the gossip. Even better. You did the right thing, Florence. Some people think revenge is petty, but this wasn't revenge. This was justice. He was right. I didn't want revenge. I wanted Marcus to understand that actions have consequences. I wanted him to know that betraying someone who loved you, who built a life with you, who trusted you, that's not something you just apologize away. I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I threw myself into my father's company, modernizing our processes and landing 3 major international contracts. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. I started running again, something I'd loved before Marcus convinced me it was too time-consuming. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Marcus at a coffee shop downtown. He was with a woman, not Tiffany, someone new, someone who looked tired of him already. Florence, he said, looking uncomfortable. How are you? Excellent, I said. Business is booming. I just got back from Tokyo. You? I'm managing, working on some small projects. Good for you, I said, and I meant it. Not because I wished him well, but because I genuinely didn't care anymore. He was irrelevant to my life. As I walked away, I heard the woman with him ask, "Who was that?" "No one important," Marcus said. I smiled. Finally, he'd said something true. That night, I thought about everything I'd learned. Marriage isn't just about love. It's about trust, respect, and partnership. Marcus had violated all three. Some people might say I should have tried to work it out, that everyone deserves forgiveness. But here's what I know now. Forgiveness is earned, not owed. And some betrayals are too fundamental to forgive. Marcus didn't just cheat, he lied for months, spent our money on another woman, planned a future without me, and would have left me broke if I hadn't caught him. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And choices have consequences. Have you ever caught a cheating partner red-handed? What would you have done if you discovered your spouse was planning to leave you for someone else while spending your money on the affair? Like and subscribe for more stories about people who refused to be victims and fought back the right way.